They requested a shuttle. What arrived was humanity's most feared battleship. The distress signal came in at 3:41, and Commander Dana Holt was elbow-deep in a Bay 7 cargo discrepancy when it hit her terminal. She wiped her hands on her uniform jacket and read it. Then read it again. Not because it was hard to follow. Because it was not. The Veth Conclave, a diplomatic species, with 17 star systems and a long-standing habit of filing everything in triplicate, had a situation on Murith 4. Their delegation was stranded. Hostile fauna had surrounded the shuttle bay. Communications were degraded. 11 diplomats and 2 support staff, no way out, and every hour the predators outside drew tighter around the perimeter. They needed extraction. Specifically, they had filed for a Class 2 diplomatic shuttle. Unarmed. Registry flagged. The kind of vessel you sent when the entire message was, "We are not here to cause trouble." 6 crew members, a small medical kit, and a coffee maker that worked about half the time on a good day. Dana pulled up the available asset list. The nearest Class 2 shuttle was offline. Engine recall 2 days prior, no estimated return date. The second nearest was already running a supply rotation to Proxima Station. It could be rerouted, but the turnaround paperwork alone would take 6 hours, and the Veth delegation had already been pinned inside that bay for 31. The third option had a pilot on medical leave. That was a different stack of forms entirely, and she was not going down that road tonight. She scrolled further. The UES Iron Meridian was logged as available. She stared at that line. The Iron Meridian was currently holding position 3 hours from Murith 4, running a quiet patrol near the outer edge of the system. Its captain was Owen Price, a man she had served for 3 years and who communicated mostly in short sentences and very long silences, and who she trusted with her life without ever having said so out loud. The ship itself was 2 km of battle grade assault plating, 6 primary rail arrays that had earned their own names in 17 alien languages. None of those names polite. Point defense clusters layered across the hull like a second skin, a silhouette that the Orethi species, careful old, known for writing very long contracts, had once painted on a warning buoy at the edge of human space, in the color their culture reserved for permanent hazards. The Iron Meridian had a combat record that Fleet Command kept classified, not because it was embarrassing, because the opposite of embarrassing was also a problem. Dana flagged the situation up the chain. At 3:41, the chain was Lieutenant Cal Marsh, 23 years old, 6 weeks into his first posting at Fleet Logistics, still learning which forms superseded which other forms. He looked at the asset list, reviewed the routing request, and messaged back. 1 line, closest available vessel. Correct. Dana stared at the screen. She thought about typing something longer. Correct, she typed instead. Cal Marsh logged the assignment, sent the routing confirmation, and went back to whatever he had been doing before. The Iron Meridian received its orders and began correcting course toward Murith 4. Dana sat with that for a moment. She had made the call, not Cal. She had flagged the situation to him at 3:41, knowing exactly what was on the asset list and what was not. The decision had been hers to push. upward, and she had passed it sideways. Instead, and the result was now on record and inbound. She pulled up the iron meridians. External profile schematic on her secondary screen. She found the request form, which included a small attached reference image, the Class 2 shuttle they had been expecting. Gray, compact, the kind of vessel you could fit inside a mid-range cargo freighter without filling it. The shuttle in the image was approximately the size of the iron meridian's secondary docking collar. She closed both windows. She went back to Bay 7. The cargo discrepancy was still there. 0.003 metric tons of compressed rations logged. Missing for 11 weeks. It was not going anywhere. That's going to be a form, she said to no one. She did not mean the inventory. Captain Owen Price appeared in the Bay 7 doorway at 4:09. He had a coffee. He always had a coffee, not because he needed it, she suspected, but because it was something to hold. Owen Price was a man who liked to have something in his hands when he was thinking. He looked at the routing log she had left open on the main console. He looked at her. She did not explain herself. He crossed to the terminal and read the mission file. Not Cal's summary. The full one. The one that included the iron meridian's current asset classification, the restricted access combat addendum, and the small note she had added at the bottom for context. Veth delegation. Requested unarmed vessel. Owen read it. He drank a sip of his coffee. Right then, he said. That was all. 3 hours later, the iron meridian dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Above Marith 4. Dana was on the bridge by then. She had her station pulled up, the long-range feed running across her primary screen. She watched the arrival complete itself and settled back in her chair with the expectation of a standard planetary approach sequence. What she observed instead was this. Over the next 11 minutes, 47 registered vessels distributed across the Marith system began to drift. Small course corrections, subtle enough to look like routine, repositioning if you were inclined toward generosity, not subtle enough if you were watching the overall pattern from a fixed point. Every single one of them moved further away from the iron meridian's position. Not fast, not panicked, just away. Dana noted it in the mission log. Nearby vessels adjusted course following arrival. No incidents. Accurate description. Complete description. She had nothing else to add. The first transmission from Marith 4 station came 4 minutes after arrival. Not a greeting. Not a standard identification query. The channel opened, held silence for 6 seconds, and then a voice said, "In." Interstellar common spoken with the careful enunciation of someone choosing every word before releasing it. "Did you say iron meridian?" Dana leaned toward the comm panel. Confirmed. Another silence. "We filed for a Class 2 shuttle," the voice said. "I know," Dana said. "We were the closest available vessel." No answer came immediately. The channel stayed open. She could hear background sounds. Movement, voices at low volume, the electronic hum of equipment under extended operational stress. Someone was talking fast in a language she did not recognize. Someone else told them to stop. "Is your delegation still in position?" she asked. "Yes." The voice returned, controlled and clipped. Shuttle Bay 4, Southern Continent. They have been there for 32 hours. The fauna situation, is it the same as reported? A pause. Ongoing, the voice said. Unchanged. Dana looked at the sensor feed on her secondary screen. Murith 4 was a green-brown planet. 2. Active weather systems pulling cloud cover across the northern hemisphere. The southern continent currently running clear. Shuttle Bay 4 was a small structure on the edge of the forest line, isolated, surrounded on 3 sides by dense growth. The 4th side faced the landing pad. On thermal imaging, the pad read cold. Nothing had lifted from it recently. The forest was not cold. The forest had a great deal of heat, moving through it in a slow arc, the kind of pattern she recognized from 3 other worlds on 3 assignments, none of which she discussed at social gatherings. It never meant anything good. We are beginning approach, she said. Advise your delegation to stay inside and away from exterior walls. Commander. The voice paused. Started again. Your ship, it is armed. Yes. Will you be using those systems? Dana looked at the thermal feed. The heat signatures moving in slow, patient circles through the tree line. We will see, she said. Keep your delegation inside. She closed the channel. On the main comm, Owen Price was already pulling the Iron Meridian into low planetary orbit. He was doing it the way he did. Everything without visible urgency. Without theatrics, the ship moving the way something of that mass moved when it had already decided where it was going. Before you noticed it had started. The second transmission came from outside the Murith system entirely. An Orethi frequency. Long range. The sender identified as Treth VA. Commerce Coordinator stationed aboard Murith IV's orbital trade platform for a routine review. Treth VA's first message was 3 words: we see you. Dana wrote back, thank you for the notification. She was not being dismissive. She was noting that the observation had been received and acknowledged and did not require further action. Treth VA's second message arrived 90 seconds later. It read, how large is that vessel? Dana sent back the Iron Meridians. Registered tonnage under its fleet. Classification. The third message from Treth VA took 4 minutes. When it came, it said, that figure applies to the standard Meridian class. Listing. Your vessel is not listed under standard classification. Dana looked at the message. She typed no. She sent nothing else. Treth VEA did not respond immediately. But the channel stayed open, a passive monitoring connection, the kind maintained when someone was not ready to speak but was also not willing to lose the thread. She understood that instinct. She left the channel open and went back to her station. The Iron Meridian settled into low orbit. Through the bridge viewport, Murith 4 filled the lower half of her field of view. Green and brown, slow rotating long white cloud lines crossing the southern continent in the early morning light of its star. A quiet planet, indifferent to the situation on its surface and the escalating communication traffic in the space above it. She thought about 11 Veth diplomats in Shuttle Bay 4. 32 hours. No external resupply. The brief had mentioned 2 injuries but had been short on detail, the kind of brevity that either meant the injuries were manageable or meant the person Writing the brief had not wanted to put more words to it. She did not like either option. She went down herself. She took a 4-person tactical lander and 2 crew members, Nina Ford, her best pilot who had a gift for placing a ship exactly where it needed to be with no drama and no wasted motion, and Leon Watts, chief science officer, because the situation on the ground was going to involve biology, and Leon was the only person aboard who could brief on megafauna ecology and also be useful in an actual field emergency. They dropped through the atmosphere without incident. Murrith IV's air was breathable, dense. It had a smell she could not place, something green and faintly sharp, like rain on cut vegetation. The lander set down on the outer edge of the landing pad, and they covered the remaining distance to the shuttle bay door on foot. The tree line was 50 m away. She did not look directly at it. She looked at it from the corner of her eye, the way you looked at things you did not want to give the satisfaction of your full attention. 50 m of open ground. The trees absolutely still in the morning air. She keyed the bay door. Ambassador Sorveth was standing 5 steps back from the entrance, which meant she had positioned herself close enough to hear the lander set down, but far enough back to maintain the appearance of composure. She was tall, silver carapace, her posture carrying the specific exhaustion of someone who had not slept in 2 days and was not going to mention it to anyone. She looked at Dana. She looked past Dana at the tactical lander sitting on the pad behind her. She looked at Dana again. "You are not a shuttle," Sorveth said. "No," said Dana. "Your ship," Sorveth stopped. Began again. "Your ship is not a shuttle." "No." The ambassador processed this. Dana watched her work through the recalculation, the adjustment of expectations, the decision about which of several available responses to select. "Are you going to cause a problem?" Sorveth asked. Dana looked past her into the bay. 13 people. 11 diplomats, 2 support staff. 2 of the support staff were seated against the far wall, one with an arm in a makeshift brace assembled from equipment straps, the other sitting close beside them. The rest were standing or were on supply crates. Their expressions ranged from exhausted relief to a weariness. They were working to keep off their faces and not quite managing. "Not to you," Dana said. Sorveth stepped aside. Leon moved immediately toward the injured staff member. Nina went to the shuttle bay's control terminal to pull whatever sensor data was still active. Dana walked the perimeter of the bay, checking the wall seals, the ventilation panels, the structural condition. "Tell me about the fauna," she said. Sorveth followed. "The Keth rail. There is no clean translation for what they are. Apex predators is accurate but too simple. They have been on this continent longer than our species has had space travel. They are intelligent, not in a way that allows communication, but in a way that allows planning. Pack hunters, groups of 30 to 50. They hunt by exhaustion. They do not rush a target. They position around it and they wait. And eventually whatever is inside comes out. How did your delegation get caught? Drive failure on landing. We sent the distress signal immediately. By the time we understood the threat, the pack was already in position." Sorveth paused. "They do not attack the structure. They wait." "How long will they wait?" The ambassador looked at her steadily. As long as necessary, she said. Dana stopped walking. They do not scare, she said. Not a question. Nothing on this planet frightens them. Sorveth said. There is nothing here larger than they. Lar? Dana nodded. She went to where Leon was crouching. Beside the injured staff member, a young Veth whose arm was clearly fractured. Below the elbow, whose color had gone a shade too pale and who was watching Dana with the careful attention of someone trying to determine what kind of situation they were now in. How many hours? Dana asked. 26, the young Veth said. Leon glanced up and gave her a small nod. Stable, the nod said. Painful but stable. We are going to move you in less than an hour, Dana said. How, the young Veth asked. Not argumentative. Just wanting to understand. We are going to move the Kethrail. First, Dana said. The young Veth's eyes went briefly toward the exterior wall, though there was no view through it. With weapons, Dana thought about the iron meridian sitting in orbit above them. No, she said. The young Veth stared at her. They live here, Dana said. She stood. She stepped away from the group and keyed her comm. Dana's comm connected to the iron meridian and Owen's voice came through. Without preamble. Go ahead. I need the ship lower, she said. Not surface approach. High atmosphere, southern hemisphere. Close enough that the driver ray creates a sustained pressure displacement across the continental shelf. A pause on Owen's end. You want to rattle the ground, he said. I want to rattle everything from the tree line outward for 3 km. Sustained low frequency, high output. No weapons, no targeting systems active. Pure atmospheric displacement. Duration. 6 minutes minimum. Sustained throughout. That puts us at roughly 300 km. Altitude, Owen said. Every telescope in the system is going to see a warship running a combat descent profile. I know. Every species within sensor range is going to read that as a hostile engagement posture. I know. And we are doing this to move animals. Yes, Dana said. A very brief pause from Owen, the kind he used when something was straightforward, but he wanted the record to reflect he had considered it. 15 minutes to position. I need a clear weather window over the southern approach. You have it. Southern continent is completely clear. Copy that. 15 minutes. A pause. Dana. What? The Arethi monitoring channel. It is still open. She had not thought about Trethvi in the last 40 minutes. She thought about it now. Leave it, she said. You want them watching. She thought about how to answer that. Honestly, I want them to see what they are actually looking at, she said. They have been watching a sensor icon on a feed for the past hour. That is not the same thing. Owen said nothing further, which from Owen was agreement. She closed the comm and went back to Sorveth. We have 14 minutes, she said. When I give the signal, your entire group moves immediately. No stopping. No looking toward the tree line. You move directly to the lander and you get on it. How much warning will you give before the signal? None, Dana said. The signal is go. When you hear it, you move. The 14 minutes that followed moved at the pace of something that knew it mattered. Nobody in the shuttle bay talked much. The diplomats had the trained stillness of people who had spent careers in rooms where showing strain was a disadvantage. The two support staff managed it less cleanly. The older one kept checking and rechecking the same bag of supplies, which was not about the supplies. Vel, the young one with the fractured arm, was sitting straighter now, arm supported, eyes tracking every movement Dana made with the focused attention of someone who had decided to pay close attention to whoever knew what they were doing. Dana sat on a supply crate near the door. She pulled up the wrist unit and watched the Iron Meridian's position indicator track across the planetary map. Steady descent. High atmosphere south approach exactly on the path Owen had calculated. At 34 km altitude, something changed in the upper cloud cover over the southern continent. The clouds did not break. They compressed, a subtle flattening along the ship's lower profile as the driver ray began its low frequency output. At ground level, the effect was almost nothing yet. Almost. She felt it first in her chest. A deep, low pressure below the range of hearing, the kind of resonance the body registered as warning before the brain had caught up to classifying it. It was not loud. It was enormous. There was a difference. She looked at the thermal feed on her wrist unit. 42 heat signatures arranged across 3 km of forest in a patient encircling arc. All still. She watched. 12 minutes out. Drive output increased. 11 minutes. Increased again. The frequency was fully audible now, not a sound exactly, but as a physical presence in the air, a low tone that sat in the back of the sternum and did not leave. She watched the thermal feed. The first heat signature at the eastern tree line moved. Not toward the bay. Away. She kept watching. A second moved. Same direction. Away from the descent path. A third. A fourth. She stood. Sorvath, she said. The ambassador was at her side in 3 steps. Get your people ready, Dana said. The moment I say go, you move. You do not stop. You do not look at the trees. You get on the lander. Is it working? Dana watched the feed. 8 signatures moving now. 12. 16. All flowing away from the ships. Position in the same quiet direction. Filtering back into the deeper forest. With no noise, no visible agitation. Just a collective decision being made. And acted upon. Yes, Dana said. Get ready. She looked at the tree line through the small viewport in the bay door. The forest was completely still. Then it was not. Not violently. Nothing dramatic. Just things moving through it that you could not see, pulling the shadows with them as they went, the undergrowth shifting in patterns that were not wind. 42 Keithril, the most patient hunters on this continent, moving away in the direction of somewhere else. She gave herself 4 seconds to be sure. Go, she said. The Iron Meridian came down through the clouds. Not to the surface. Not close to it. 300 km was still a vast distance between a ship and a planet. But at 300 km, a ship of that length was not a distant object on a sensor feed. It was the shape in the sky. It filled a section of the upper atmosphere the way nothing but geology was supposed to fill things. A 2 km silhouette, dark against the pale upper air, its drive array trailing a long compression line through the cloud layer below its hull. The ship was holding position, rather, then descending further, and it moved at the slow, absolute pace of something that had already decided where it was and had no reason to go anywhere else. Dana was standing on the landing pad when it appeared above the cloud line. She had been aboard the Iron Meridian for 3 years. She had watched it operate from every angle and in every condition. She had stood on its bridge and looked down at planets from above, and she had stopped seeing it the way you stopped seeing the scar on your own hand, so familiar that the eye passed over it without registering what was actually there. She saw it now. The ground vibrated, not violently, a deep, steady pulse through the soles of her boots that moved up through her legs and settled in her chest, a frequency that the body understood as warning before the mind had caught up to naming it. She did not look away from the sky. The forest was already moving. Not the trees. The trees were still, but the thermal display on her wrist unit showed 42 heat signatures streaming away from the tree line in every direction, all flowing the same way, away from the ship's position and away from the landing pad and away from every open ground, moving with no noise and no visible hesitation, the way things moved when they had made a decision and were acting on it. The landing pad was clear in 4 minutes. Go, Dana said. The shuttle bay door opened. Ambassador Sorveth came out first, leading the delegation in a tight group, moving fast without running, which was exactly what had been asked and which demonstrated a level of field discipline that Dana noted and did not comment on. The diplomats moved 2 and 3 at a time. The older support staff member stayed close to Val, supporting the injured arm, moving in step. Nina had the lander ramped down already. Engines live and quiet. Dana counted them in. 13. All 13. She was last up the ramp. She sealed the door behind her and said, "Lift." Nina Ford was very good at her job. The lander went up hard and clean, tree line sliding past below, cloud cover closing beneath them, and then they were above it and climbing, and the Iron Meridian was there in front of them, its starboard docking bay open and lit, warm against the cold exterior, dark, growing larger with each second. Dana stood in the cabin. Val was looking out the side viewport at the ship. It was very large from the outside. She had forgotten that. "This is your ship," Val said. "Yes," Dana said. Val kept looking at it. "You came here for us. In this ship. You needed extraction." Val turned to look at her. There was something in that expression that Dana could not immediately put a name to. Not gratitude alone, though it held some of that. Not shock, though it held some of that, too. Something more fundamental, the recognition that the category a person places a thing in can be too small for the actual thing, and the moment of understanding that that has been the case for a long time. "You moved them," Val said. "The Keth rail." "Yes." "The ship could have done much more than that." "Yes," Dana said. "It could have." Val looked back out the viewport. "Why didn't you?" Val asked. "They live there," Dana said. "That planet is theirs. We needed to use it for 30 minutes. They docked." Owen was waiting at the docking collar. Not standard procedure. He was still holding his coffee. He counted the Veth coming through the connection corridor and looked at Dana. She gave him a nod that meant all of them. He nodded back. Medical situation, he asked. One fracture stable. Dehydration across most of them. Nothing critical. Good. He turned to the group. Welcome aboard. Medical bay is on deck 4. My crew will take you there. Ambassador Sorveth stopped in front of him. She looked at him with the careful attention of someone recalibrating their understanding of a situation they thought they had already assessed. You are the captain, she said. Yes. Your ship moved 42 Kethrael, she said. I understand that is what happened. Owen said. Is that a routine operation for a vet of this classification? Owen turned his coffee cup in his hands. It was, he said, a straightforward application of available capacity. Sorveth held that answer for a long moment. Then she moved on toward deck 4. Owen watched her go. Dana moved past him toward the bridge. She sat at her station and pulled up the comm feed. Tret VA's passive monitoring channel was still open. The indicator light was steady and had been for the past 40 minutes maintained. Through the approach, the descent, the extraction, and the docking sequence, someone on the orbital platform had been sitting with that open connection the entire time. She keyed the channel. Tret VA. A pause. Commander Holt. The Arethi voice carried a harmonic beneath its standard register, not audible in the primary frequency range, but present in the data modulation. She had spent enough time around Arethi communications to know what that harmonic indicated. The species produced it involuntarily, under certain stress responses. Not fear exactly. The body's way of processing something the mind had not yet fully worked through. I wanted to confirm you were still on the channel, Dana said. I am, Tret VA said. A pause that neither of them filled. I watched the descent, Tret VA said. Yes. I have been doing intersystem commerce coordination for 31 years, Tret VA said. In that time, I have transited 17 human patrolled systems. I have seen your vessels on manifest records, on docking logs, on transit filings. Dana waited. I have never seen one do that. Do what? Descend like that. Into an atmosphere. As though it simply decided to come down. As though the planet had no say in whether it appeared above it. Dana did not respond. Your vessel destroyed nothing, Treth. VE said. It did not fire. It produced no targeted threat output. It descended, and everything in that forest left. A pause. The Kestrel have no natural predators. In 31 years of visits to this system, I have never once seen them retreat from anything. I was not aware it was within their behavioral range. They are intelligent, Dana said. They are capable of assessing a situation. They assessed yours and left. Yes. You could have destroyed them, Treth. VE said. You had complete capacity. It would have taken seconds. The threat to the Veth delegation would have been removed. Yes. Why didn't you? Dana looked out the bridge viewport at Marith 4 below. The southern continent, slow rotating. Green and brown and indifferent, the long shadow of afternoon pulling across the forest. Because we could, she said. Silence on the channel. I do not understand that answer, Treth. VE said. 31 years ago, Dana said, the first time you walked into a room to negotiate. A trade agreement. Was there a moment when you understood the weight of what you were doing? Not the procedure, the actual weight of it. A long pause. Yes, Treth VE said. You were careful because you could also have been careless. The care only meant something because the carelessness was also an option. One is nothing without the other. The channel was quiet. The harmonic in Treth VE's voice had not gone away. I watched your ship descend, Treth VE said. I watched it push the fauna back across 3 km of forest without activating a single weapon array. And I kept thinking, a pause. How long have you been able to do that? How long have you had ships like that? Dana looked at the planet below. She thought about the honest answer. A while, she said. A long silence followed. Then Treth VA said quietly, we have been trading with your species for 40 years. We have filed routes, negotiated tariffs, reviewed manifests. We know the registered names of your vessels. We know your classification codes and your flag tonnage. A pause. We did not know what we were looking at. Dana sat with that. She had known the arrival would draw attention. Ships like the Iron Meridian drew attention simply by existing. She had expected the reactions of the smaller vessels repositioning across the system. She had expected the questions. She had not expected to feel, sitting at her station on the bridge of a ship she had served on for 3 years, that Treth VA's words were pulling something to the surface that she had put away a long time ago. She left the channel open. She stood. She went to check on the Veth delegation. In medical. 48 hours later, Dana was back in Bay 7. The inventory report was open on her portable terminal. The 0.003 metric ton discrepancy sat in the same column it had occupied for 11 weeks. Unchanged since the distress signal. Unchanged through the mission. Unchanged through everything that had come after. She had come back to it because Bay 7 was her responsibility, and she was going to close it. She stared at the numbers. Her comm chimed. You have 37 messages, said Nina Ford from the doorway. I know. 37 flagged urgent messages, Nina said. I know. Nina leaned against the door frame with the ease of someone who had earned the comfort through time. She was quiet in most circumstances and very good at her job in all of them, and she had a way of standing in doorways that made it clear she was not leaving until whatever needed to be said had been said. The Arethi Diplomatic Corps wants a meeting, Nina said. I know. The Galactic Commerce Bureau wants a meeting. I know. 4 species that were in the Mureth system during the descent are each requesting individual meetings. I know. The Veth Conclave's Foreign Relations Office sent a formal letter of gratitude. 8 pages. Dana looked up from the terminal. 8 pages, she said. Page 4 contains a phrase that my translation processor flagged as significant. It reads, Nina consulted her screen, demonstrated restraint acknowledged, and entered into permanent interstellar record. Dana considered that the Veth maintained a permanent diplomatic record of certain moments, historical accounting of events they deemed worth preserving for the understanding of future generations. Entering something into it required formal council review and a full conclave vote. It was not a routine entry. It was not something they did without deliberation. Route all the meetings to command. Dana said, Every one of the 37. Yes. Captain Price has already forwarded 3 of them this morning, Nina said. The remaining 34 came directly to you. Dana looked at the inventory screen. Then route the remaining 34 to command, she said. Nina did not move. There is one more, she said. From Treth Vi. No subject line. Dana set the terminal down. She crossed to the wall terminal and opened the message. 2 sentences. How long have you had ships like that? She stared at the words. She typed a while. She sent it. She stood there for a moment with her hand on the terminal edge, looking at the sent confirmation on the screen. 3 years on the Iron Meridian. Before that, 8 years in active fleet. Deployment across 4 different postings. Before that, the years she did not include in ordinary conversation, the assignment she had not chosen to leave, the crew that had not returned the same way it went out. Kepler Station was not something she put in casual conversation, but it had made her what she was, the same way sustained pressure made certain metals harder, and she carried it the way she carried most things, quietly and without explanation. She had served on ships like the Iron Meridian for most of her adult life. She had stopped seeing them. Trev's question had done something she had not been prepared for. It had made her look at the ship she was standing inside of with the eyes of someone encountering it for the first time, not the duty roster, not the maintenance schedule, not the mission parameters she reviewed every morning. The actual thing, what it communicated to every sensor array and every watching eye in a star system simply by being present in it. I want them to see what they are actually looking at. She had said that to Owen. She had believed when she said it that she was talking about the other species in the Meredith system, the Arethi, the Watchers, the 47 vessels that had quietly moved further away. Standing in Bay 7 now, she was not entirely sure she had only meant them. She went back to the inventory terminal. She pulled up the full logging history. 11 weeks of entries, all showing the same shortfall. She worked backward through the original intake records and the transfer logs and the weekly audit confirmations. She pulled the calibration history on the automated weighing sensor in Bay 7's primary storage unit. There, a calibration drift logged at week 3, corrected at week 3, but the correction had been applied only to new entries going forward. The historical records had never been back calculated. 11 weeks of apparent discrepancy. 0 missing rations. She filed the correction. She closed the inventory report. Done. She sat on a cargo crate and did not do anything for approximately 90 seconds, which was not a thing she did often. Owen appeared in the doorway. He had his coffee. She had never in 3 years seen him without it during duty hours, and she had long since stopped considering whether it was ever a fresh one. He came in and stood near the storage units and did not speak. This was normal. He used silence as the way other people use sentences, and she had learned over 3 years to let them sit until they were ready to become something. 37 messages, she said. 34 now, he said. I sent 3 up this morning. The Veth letter. Yes. Permanent interstellar record, she said. Owen turned his coffee cup in his hands. For a ship that was filed as a taxi. He said. Something moved in her chest. Not a feeling she had a clean name for. The specific kind of tired that was not. About sleep. I made the call, she said. At 3:41. I could have gone up the chain. I handed it to Cal instead. Cal made the routing decision. Cal is 23 and 6 weeks in. That was not his call to make, and I made it his. He made a reasonable decision with the information he had, Owen said. You made a reasonable decision to let him. The outcome is what it is. Dana looked at the floor. The Arethi meeting, she said. When command schedules it. What about it? What are they going to ask? Owen considered this the way he considered important things without hurrying toward an answer. How long? How many? What the operational parameters are for vessels of this classification. What will command say? What they always say, Owen said. What fits the arrangement? What is in the published registry? What maintains the balance? The arrangement. That was the word used in fleet briefings and diplomatic frameworks and intersystem policy discussions. The arrangement, the careful balance of what was shown and what was not, maintained across decades and across the full range of human military capacity. It was not secrecy exactly. Other species knew human warships existed. They knew the registered classifications, the stated performance figures, the flag tonnage data. They knew what was filed. What had happened at Murrith 4 was not a violation of the arrangement. Everything the Iron Meridian had done fell within normal operational parameters. Nothing classified had been disclosed. Nothing had been demonstrated that was outside the public record. But reading a registry entry was not the same as watching the Iron Meridian descend through a planet's atmosphere while the clouds compressed around its hull. That was the gap Treth V's message had fallen into. We did not know what we were looking at. 31 years of route coordination, Dana said. Owen looked at her. Treth V, she said. 31 years. 17 human systems on their trade map. Our ships logged on every one of those systems' transit records. She paused. We have been so careful for so long. We file at registered tonnage. We maintain the arrangement. We do not rattle anything that does not require rattling. Yes, Owen said. And in 31 years, Treth V had never actually seen one of our ships. Owen was quiet. They had read about it, Dana said. Sensor feed, transit logs manifest. Entries, all of it. But they had never seen it. Not the way you see something when it comes down through a planet's atmosphere, and the clouds flatten below it and the ground shakes 3 km in every direction, and 40 predators with no natural enemies decide it is a very good time to go somewhere else. Owen looked at her. That is a hard thing to know what to do with, he said. Yes, she said. She stood. She went to the far wall of Bay 7, where a small maintenance viewport gave a narrow view out into open space. Murrith 4 was long gone from range, left behind in the course of normal operations, turning on its axis. Somewhere behind them, the starfield outside the viewport was uninterrupted and stable and exactly the same as it had been before the distress signal hit her terminal. 47 vessels repositioned when we arrived, she said. 49 by the final count, Owen said. They did not move because we filed an extraction request. No. They moved because of what we are. Owen said nothing. And we have been here, Dana said. The whole time. Running routes, filing manifests, doing patrol cycles. Being exactly what we are. And most of the galaxy has been reading the manifest and not actually looking at the ship. It is easier that way, Owen said. For everyone involved. Yes. She thought about Ambassador Sorveth, standing in front of Owen in the docking corridor. The visible process of recalibration. Behind the ambassador's controlled expression. It was not a reassessment of threat level. It was something deeper than that, the recognition that the container a person uses for a thing can be too small for the actual thing inside it, and the slow understanding that this has been true for a long time. She thought about Val looking at the lander viewport at the Iron Meridian, growing larger in front of them, and saying only, "It is very large." Not a complaint. Not an accusation. The honest observation of someone seeing it clearly, possibly for the first time. They will want answers, Dana said. The meetings. The species that were in system. They will want to know if what they saw is standard. If all our ships are like this. How many there are and where. Yes, Owen said. They will want to know if they should be worried. What is the honest answer to that? Owen turned to look at her directly. She was looking at the viewport, at the stable star field, at the specific. Nothing she had chosen to look at. Instead of him. The honest answer, Owen said carefully, is that worried is not the right frame. Then what is? He took his time. We came when they called, he said. We used what we had. We moved the predators instead of removing them. We brought 13 people home. He paused. The ship is what it is. We have always been what we are. The question is not what frame is correct for us. The question is what frame the rest of the galaxy was using before Meredith 4. And whether it was accurate. Dana looked at the star field. It was not, she said. No, he said. It was not. He drank a sip of his coffee. She kept looking at the window. She thought about Trethvi's question. Sitting in the open channel in those last quiet minutes before she had ended the conversation. How long have you had ships like that? And her own answer, a while. 2 words. Accurate. Honest. Saying everything that needed to be said. Without crossing into anything that broke the arrangement, without disclosing anything that should not be disclosed, but also the compressed form of something much larger. What those 2 words held inside them. Without stating it, we have been here in the systems you trade through and patrol, and consider familiar territory carrying this capacity for a very long time. We have been careful. We have maintained the balance. We have shown you the manifest page and not the ship. And none of that was because we were afraid of you. She did not send any of that to Treth. Via. She sent a while. She stood in Bay 7 with the inventory discrepancy closed and the starfield unchanged outside the viewport, and 34 flagged urgent messages being handled by people above her pay grade. And she thought about the Kethrail, 42 of them filtering quietly back into the deep forest. No noise. No drama. Just an intelligent species making a rational calculation and acting on it. Cleanly. They had assessed the situation. They had determined the numbers did not work in their favor. They had moved. Not because they were small. Not because they were afraid. Because they were smart, and smart things recognized the shape of something that existed on a different scale than themselves. Dana turned away from the viewport. She picked up her inventory terminal. The Bay 7 discrepancy was closed, and the report was filed, and there was nothing left in this room that needed. Sorry. She went to check on Vel's fracture on Deck 4. On the way, she passed the observation deck, a long room with a wide curved viewport. Quiet at this hour, no one in it. The starfield through the glass was the same as it always was, deep and still, and indifferent to the smaller things happening in it. She paused in the doorway. 11 seconds. Then she went to check on Vel. Owen Price was still in Bay 7 when she left, still holding his coffee, still in the particular posture of someone who had not finished thinking. When he was done, he would go back to the bridge and run the ship, and the ship would continue doing what it had always done, being what it was in the systems it moved through, filed under its proper classification in every registry that asked for it, visible to anyone who cared to look. The coffee was fine. The stars were unchanged. The iron meridian held its course. Dana walked the corridor toward medical, past the junction markers and the duty postings and the maintenance panels she had memorized years ago, and she did not let herself think about what the 34 meetings were going to look like when command scheduled them, or what new entries were going to be added to what permanent records, or what the galaxy's understanding of human capacity looked like now compared to 48 hours ago. She thought about forms. She was good at forms. She would handle it. That had always been the job. She was still very good at the job.